Today on Homeworthy, we're taking you to Bellport, New York for a look inside interior designer Chris Benz's gorgeous Victorian shingled home and grounds. Chris has masterfully transformed each space, working with the home's original layout to create cozy, inviting nooks. With a background as a designer for J.Crew, Chris brings the same layered and effortless sensibility to his home design as he does to fashion, adding cool accessories that make each room uniquely his own. He takes us outside to introduce us to his chickens before giving us a tour of his beautifully restored gardens. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. By clicking the join button below, you not only support the production of these videos, you also gain access to exclusive content just for members, including an inside look today into Chris's collected guest cottage that is filled with fabulous treasures. Join today to see more of the homes you love.
Hey Homeworthy! Welcome to my farmhouse in Bellport, New York. I'm Chris Benz. I can't wait to show you around. Come on in. Hey everyone, I'm Chris Benz. Welcome to my home in Brookhaven Hamlet, New York. We're here in my entryway. It is a Victorian farmhouse that I've spent about the past 5 years renovating, and you'll get to see pretty much every single room as we do a little walk and talk, some of my favorite pieces from each room, and talk about the journey of picking colors, shopping for furniture, and the renovation process over many years of collecting and picking all of my favorite pieces. So when I first arrived at this house, you can imagine it probably did not look like this, and you would be right. It was a total 80s renovation, drop ceilings, hi-hat lights. I had to back out of so many things, and my process was really about figuring out what the house should look like and probably what it did look like in the late 1800s and early 1900s when it was first built. So I had always dreamt of having a weekend house, as so many people who live in Manhattan and in the city always do. After many years, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to get out of the city on the weekends. I just can't take it anymore. So I would spend hours and hours looking for old houses. I looked everywhere. I looked upstate, I looked in Long Island, of course, and I drove everywhere and looked at so many houses. I looked at stone houses in Woodstock. I looked, all the way. I was like, oh my God, I found an amazing house in Albany. And people were like, you're not driving to Albany on the weekends. Like, you were crazy. But I ended up finding this house that had really fallen into a little bit of disrepair. It has amazing gardens, but when I first arrived, they had really kind of become overgrown, and the hedges, had grown many feet beyond what they should have been and were falling over, and it sort of languished on the market. But I was up for the challenge, so you'll see what we did. So part of my job as a decorator is to find a balance between what people love, push them into new uncharted territory, and find a balance of what is exciting, what's comfortable, and create harmony in every space. So oftentimes when you have to do it for yourself, and particularly for myself, it's constantly changing, and it's even more difficult because I love so many different things. But in this house, come to find out, it was originally built as a boarding house. So a lot of the rooms didn't really speak to sort of the original use that would become, or that would be obvious when you go into an ordinary house. This is a dining room, this is a living room, this is the grand entry hall that you're supposed to be impressing the neighbors with when you have them over for, a Christmas party. There was a lot of unusual spaces. So we're in the entryway right now, which is actually really small for a house of this scale. And when you think about the original use of the house, it was rental small bedrooms upstairs, and then sort of larger common spaces downstairs. And it was for people who were on their way eastward, sailors, whalers. The trains had just made their way eastward on Long Island at the end of the 19th century. And it was a place for people to literally stay overnight, get a hot meal, play cards, and then be on their way. So in this little entryway, I kind of just made it feel cozy and welcoming. And one of the things that I used as kind of a roadmap for the color story are these original early 20th century maps of the neighborhood. So I have the town of Brookhaven, a neighborhood map of our little part of Bellport of Suffolk County, and then part of Brookhaven down here. But as you can see, if you look closely, kind of the trim color and the wall color all pull from kind of the faded and patina of these original antique maps, which I think is a really good trick when you're picking palettes for old houses, is find something old that you love and build the palette off of that, that one item. It'll feel authentic and really special. So something that's followed me for a while that I have in my collection is this Ernest Trova marble sculpture. It is very unwieldy to move, and it is from the mid 20th century. He was a sculptor. He actually designed the CFDA award, and he did a few of these large scale sculptures. I've moved it a couple times. I hope to never move it again. And now it lives here. So it scares people away from the front door, which I love. And I love that it feels kind of modern and idiosyncratic in this kind of old house. And I love the idea always of adding like one element that feels unexpected. Oftentimes in an old house, when you start to add antiques and layers and old things, it goes into that territory of feeling very traditional, and you always need something to kind of pull it out of that. And something bold like this really does that exact thing and helps it feel kind of the tension that's necessary. So one of the things that was very important to me in renovating was keeping as much of the original trim and detail as possible and the spirit of the house. I am not sentimental about painting original details, but I am very into keeping the original details in terms of the spirit of them. So all the original pocket doors were intact, which was amazing. Thinking about the idea that this was a sort of functioning, sort of hotel type structure where they would be able to kind of close off and partition different rooms was really interesting. And I loved the functionality of that, and kind of maintaining that felt really important. And again, I love the idea of painting everything in a way that felt modern, but keeping all the detail feeling very traditional. So this is Mushu. He's my 1-year-old Chow Chow, the star of the house. He'll be popping in and out as we go for the tour. So off the entryway, we have the front living room. Let's take a look. So here we are in the front living room of my house. This was probably the common area of the boarding house, and I really wanted to keep it feeling like sunny and bright and casual. I definitely did not want anything feeling formal or fussy in this room. One of the things that I learned when I started to decorate the room was that everything was shrunken down. All of the spaces between the windows, between the door and the wall, everything was small. So I actually couldn't use a lot of modern furniture because it was simply too big. And that was good for a couple of reasons. It was cost effective because I could really only buy vintage furniture and antique furniture at auction, auction sites and vintage stores and flea markets, which was super fun. And also it enabled me to kind of mix and match and pull from a bunch of different periods. I basically committed to this corner being my base camp during COVID and lived my Victorian lifestyle with a little drop front East Lake desk, and probably lived a parallel life with someone who did the same thing 100 years ago in this corner. Which I thought was sort of funny. One of the things that we did in renovating this room was lift the ceiling. All of the ceilings were dropped and had really big can lights from the 80s, which I'm sure kept it very bright, 40 years ago. But I really wanted it to feel authentic and true to the time period of the house. So one of the beams that you see existed structurally, one did not. So we added a matching beam and then added all of the beadboard to the ceilings so that we created this sort of balance in the room, and then replicated all of the original crown molding. So it sort of gave the feeling of this little bit of, detail and craftsmanship that was missing in such a big, bright front room. And then in committing to this sort of, airiness, I had this gigantic sisal rug made, and then really wanted to commit to this, the airy kind of casual feel. So everything has a hand woven, sort of tassely, tattered feel. The muslin chairs that are sort of undone, and the little bit of a raw feeling on the rug and the pillows, the mid-century canvas painting that has no frame. That was kind of the theme of this room. Another of my discoveries during COVID was that some of the most beautiful bird cages in the world are made in Croatia. And I commissioned this bird cage to be made for canaries, which I ordered to be my COVID friends, two of which you can see here. They're red factor canaries. And they sing beautifully. I think everyone should get canaries. They're so charming. And I just love this bird cage. It was such a special addition to the room, and it sort of became this sculptural element and really suits the spirit of the room, I think. So one of the things I always say about decorating is that if there's something that you love, it will always work in your space. And to that end, something that has followed me for many years is this vintage disco ball that I bought at the old Chelsea Flea Market at 26th Street, which I'm sure some of you will remember. It is long gone, but I have lugged this thing around through many apartments and many houses, and no matter what the decorating scheme has been, it has always worked, and people have always loved it. It has always looked great, and it looks great in this room. I don't know what it is. It's a Victorian farmhouse. The room is somewhat traditional, and that disco ball looks totally appropriate in it. So if you love something, put it in your room and it will look perfect. One of my best tips for decorating a room is really putting up guardrails on what you're buying, and find a very neutral baseline. Sandy, flaxy neutrals, chocolate brown, some kind of neutral palette, and then pick one pop color or two pop colors and only buy things in that palette. Then maybe add one more color, layer in a few other things, but always have that neutral base palette and the room will always look great. I am a very novice art collector and probably buy the totally wrong things, and I only buy what I like, which inevitably is probably definitely the wrong things. But this is a Tom Sachs Kelly bag, which here I can take the thing off so that you can see it a little better. When I was a student at Parsons, we always carried the Klein canvas tool bag with all of our scissors and colored pencils and everything. And the artist Tom Sachs did a version of that, and he replicated an Hermes bag with, the lock and everything and the chain, and it's called the Tom Sachs Kelly bag. So he issued, I don't know, a few of them, and I bought it as part of my art collection, which I think is so charming and funny. So it's a little nod to my days as a Parsons student. I think it's so charming. So off the living room, we have the library. Let's check it out. And welcome to the library. So for this room, I sort of did a lot of the same renovations that I did in the front living room, and installed beadboard ceiling. I actually painted it a really bright yellow because I just felt like consolidating a lot of the color, particularly with the paint in this house. It gets a lot of light, so I felt like doubling down on the light in this room, and the color felt like the right direction. It gets a lot of morning light, so it felt really like keeping it as cheerful as possible was kind of what the room wanted. And to that end, like I said, really bright yellow ceiling, this fantastic Danish modern lantern. Again, when you're shopping for vintage light fixtures, vintage furniture, it doesn't have to be on the nose. Obviously, this is a Victorian house, but this is a mid-century light fixture, but it still has the spirit of a Victorian lantern. So it still works in the context of the house. And I just love the color of the glass. And it's not like you would find that in a Victorian light fixture necessarily. So in addition to all of those bright colors, adding in some bright upholstery, some bright side tables, just keeping all of these really vibrant elements contained into one room, keeps up the guardrails of design, all into a sort of safe space for me in this one room. And that's what keeps it really successful, I think. Again, grounding the space with this really severe East Lake bookcase kind of lends the authenticity of reminding you that we're in a Victorian house with that really nice ebonized finish. And then, again, twisting it a little bit, one of my other collections, which I've been amassing for a while, are these really cool Italian ceramics. They pop up every once in a while at auction, and obviously you can find them at flea markets all over the place. But you know, when you group all of your collections into one big kind of mass, it becomes sculptural and really impactful. So I'm always looking for places to do that, and I love kind of how that looks with the bookcase. So one of my design tricks, which is often overlooked and actually was developed over obligation. When I was a student and I had like 2 pennies, I found this trunk on the street because in the city, obviously people are throwing things out all the time, and it became the coffee table in my first apartment. And look, it's still a coffee table in my house today, and it is awesome. I feel like people always overlook steamer trunks as a piece of furniture, and they always look great. I love the old hotel stickers on them, and the travel stickers, and it's amazing storage. You keep all of the stuff that you don't want to see, or, you know, holiday decorations or whatever inside when you don't need them day to day. So it's just an amazing element, and you should use it. You know, I kind of used this painting as inspiration for the room, and that felt like the roadmap for all of the pieces that went into this room. But again, the sort of beige was the foundation, the wall color, and then that created the kind of background for all of the highlights of the bright colors. And I think that's what makes the room work, is kind of that paper bag brown. And then everything else becomes an accessory. So I think that that is always important. This sofa is Ralph Lauren. I bought it at auction. Someone upholstered it at one time in this silk velvet, and I think I know why they got rid of it, because it's impossible to take care of, but it is beautiful. I love chocolate brown. It came with 4 pillows, which weirdly was not enough because it's like not functional. But then 6 pillows is actually too much. So if anyone has any ideas about how to fix this, everyone always comments that there's too many pillows, but actually it's exactly the right amount. Don't be alarmed. Obviously, Bellport is a seaside community. We can't not have boats in our decor. I love this. It's an actual, like a pond boat, they call them. People would sail them in the early 20th century on ponds. And I don't know how they would get them back once they sent them out on the pond, but now this one safely lives on top of the bookcase in this room. This is a Ming Aralia tree that used to live in Brooklyn, and it made its way here to this house and seems to be happy in this corner. I love an interesting, unusual house plant. I am not great at keeping them alive, but somehow this one has really fought me and stayed alive for about 10 years so far. So it's winning the battle. And I just think it's, having some kind of life. It's like the canaries, the trees, it's good to have things that are living in your space, to sort of create a little bit of responsibility beyond just furniture and things. So I started my career in fashion. I attended Parsons School of Design. I loved fashion. I loved magazines. Growing up, I could not wait to move to New York and be in the fashion world. And I just loved everything about it. I loved fashion shows. I loved clothes. I still love clothes. And it was really the thing that I loved most in the world. And I started my career at Marc Jacobs. I was an intern. I was the intern that would not leave. I interned at Marc Jacobs, I think, my entire time as a student. And it was just the best. The most beautiful fabrics, the most beautiful buttons, and just seeing fashion in real life was a dream. And when I graduated, I went to work at J.Crew, and that I always felt like was my graduate school from Parsons, because it was really about American sportswear kind of on the mass level, and how to make clothes that really sell to a huge amount of people. And that was so fascinating to me, kind of understanding how the business of fashion works. And then after that stint at J.Crew, I was able to launch my own line of women's wear, which was very exciting. I had my first fashion show. We staged it at Christie's auction house, which was in 2007. And a very small little women's collection, but very beautiful, just great, colorful sportswear, like this room. It was very special, jackets and dresses that you could wear back to everything you love, a t-shirt and jeans. And did that for quite some time before going back to J.Crew and leading the women's and children's line for a number of years before making the big transition to decorating and design, which is what I do now for my own company, and working for a lot of the people that I made clothes for with my own line, who are now buying houses and apartments that need to be renovated and decorated. So it's a lot of full circle moments for me in my career, but it's been very special, and I still get to enjoy fashion for myself and, enjoy color and fabric and all of those things in a totally new way, working in the home world. The transition from fashion into home was totally natural. I mean, it's solving all of the same problems. Putting an outfit together is exactly the same as putting a room together. It's proportion, color, texture, detail, accessories. It's all of the same elements of design, just in a totally different context, and in a lot of ways feels very refreshing. Well, let's go look at the rest of the house. There's tons more to see. Welcome to the dining room. So this room probably got the most ceiling work of any of the rooms downstairs. It actually had one of the lowest ceilings of the downstairs rooms and the biggest can lights I think I've ever seen. And in being thoughtful to the idea of a Victorian farmhouse and the idea of a dining room, we raised the ceiling and installed this coffered ceiling with beadboard going in all different directions. So when you have dinner parties and things, it has this really interesting feel, especially with candlelight, and it has a little bit more grandeur than the other rooms and feels very special. A great find from our little auction house in town in Bellport is this curio cabinet, which is just amazing. If you don't have a curio cabinet, you have to get one immediately. You can put all of your weird little things in here, and it keeps anyone with a little bit of a hoarder mentality really organized. I put everything in here. There's pictures, old pictures of my mom when she was a kid. There's special plates. I always collect local antique postcards and old like travel brochures from Bellport. Look, sometimes the chickens lay like, they're called fairy eggs, like miniature eggs. So I just keep them in here and they dry out. And I just think it looks great. Whenever we're doing dinner parties or cocktail parties, people just love to come and look at all the little trinkets and special things in here. So again, I love throwing in one modern element, especially in a traditional interior. And in the dining room, I have this huge Milo Boffman dining table. I think there's, I don't know, 5 or 6 leaves. This right now has none of the leaves put in, and it still seats 6 people. But it just looks great in here. It really balances out all of the Victorian and kind of antique furniture and really grounds the space in feeling not too traditional. So I paired it with these, I guess these are Klizmos chairs, but in any case, these ebonized antique chairs, and it just looks fantastic. I use it sometimes as a desk. I can like, you know, put all of my work out on it, and it's really functional. And then if I have to have a big dinner party like Thanksgiving or something, I can extend it all the way into the library and seat, you know, 15 people at it if I need to. And I just love it so much. Another of the collections that I started when I was renovating this house was antique portraits. And at first glance, people might think it was a little cliche, but there is a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek element to them. And the context or the filter with which I try to buy these portraits is that there's something messed up or weird about them. So if you look at each one individually, you'll see there's like something off-putting about them in general. Like, she's like quite beautiful. She has kind of interesting talisman, but there's sort of a green, sickly hue to what's going on there. And she's sort of, I don't know what's going on here. So she's sort of creepy, haunted house looking. Then these two guys, I mean, we could start with his funny fur coat. He sort of looks like he could be a clown out of makeup or something. I don't know, there's a circus-y element happening. And then he's, you know, shirtless, you know, sort of has a 70s vibe happening. So, you know, there's something weird about all of the portraits. It's not just, you know, a straightforward antique portrait. So that's my criteria for the antique portraits. And I have quite a few more of them, actually. And I like to rotate them for variation. All right, let's go check out the kitchen. And here we are in the kitchen. So this was the original working kitchen of the boarding house. And to that end, there's this massive pocket door, which you can divide the entire house off from the kitchen, which is very interesting. There is the original working fireplace, which is actually the cooking fireplace. Now we just keep like silver platters and stuff in here, although it does work. I've never cooked on it. But people love the idea that you could have a fireplace in the kitchen. But this is, I guess, how they would cook everything for the boarders. I did a big renovation in this kitchen, although you would probably never know it because it pretty much looks exactly how it would have looked when the house was built. The original beadboard walls, we took everything off and then put everything back on. The cabinets, we took everything out and then resized everything to accommodate for like a new refrigerator, a new stove, and then put everything back in. Remade all of the cabinet doors, resourced the original hinges, and then put everything back. And then I knew that I wanted a really special marble. This is Opera Dart marble from France, but I wanted to keep everything feeling really casual. There is like something very casual about the house, and although I felt like a stone counter did not feel appropriate for the house, this particular marble, I felt, because of its kind of undulating colors, felt a little bit like beach stones, and that to me felt very appropriate to the house. And the colors also spoke to, I think, a lot of the colors in the house. So that's where we landed with that. I love a big kitchen island, but unfortunately, because of the proportion of the working kitchen being so narrow, we really couldn't have a proper kitchen island. So I sourced this game table just so that we could have something to lean against, chit chat while people are cooking. And it really gets a lot of use, as you can see. It's a great table. So one of the things that I love about this house is that it functions in totally different ways depending on the season. During the summer, I'm almost never inside because the yard and the gardens are so beautiful and there's so much work to do. I'm almost always outside. Plus, we have a beautiful porch, which basically becomes the outdoor living room during the summer. So we'll go look at the porch in a second, but I want to show you some pieces from my China collection first. So we have these fabulous built-in cabinets, and they just fit these blue and white pieces so perfectly. I bought most of them at auction, but look at how great. I use them all the time, and someone was like, oh, they're too beautiful, you can't use those. And I'm like, well, what are you supposed to use? I hate the idea that you have china and you don't use it. It's like, ugh, I can't imagine not using what you love. So who knows, we just use it. We haven't had any casualties yet, but I mean, if something happens, what are you gonna do? And welcome to the porch. So the porch is very special. It is basically the summer living room. It's divided, it's big enough to be divided into a big dining area and also a very gracious and beautiful kind of living area. And it truly is an outdoor living room. Everyone is pretty much outside the entire season. And there's a beautiful seagrass rug on this side and a beautiful seagrass rug on this side. When I first moved to the house, there was this amazing stick rattan furniture here, which only lasted about one season and totally fell apart. So I became insane about finding a replacement set, and I finally did. So this is the replacement set, but I wanted it to be identical to what would have been original to the house because it was, I was told, original to the house. So it made it all the way up until I bought the house. And now hopefully this set will make it another, 100 years. We shall see. But I just love it out here. We put up the lanterns, it's great at night. The view is so beautiful just looking out at the gardens. Of course, the dog loves being out here watching the chickens and the deer run by all day. Luckily, the screen porch was in pretty great condition when we moved in. There was only one little light bulb hanging from a wire, so I replaced that with a fan, replaced some of the lighting. But all in all, it was in pretty spectacular condition. So besides kind of brushing up with the furnishings and doing a little paint, it was one of the lightest touch renovation spaces that I had to do. So I love an accessory coming from the fashion world, and obviously pillows are the ultimate accessory in the home world. And these Joseph Frank pillows make me crazy. I could not decide on what print I like the most, so I pretty much bought one of each, or actually a couple of each print. And I figured out that the best arrangement when you're mixing prints with pillows is to group them together. So don't just mix all the prints together, put the like prints together, and then, you know, so that there's some kind of order. And that always looks the best. So that's how I did it on the couches, and it ends up looking a little bit more logical if you have them at least grouped together with a little bit of order. Well, it's an absolutely beautiful day, so I don't know if you can hear it, but the chickens are desperate to be let out and poke around the garden. So let's go let them out and we'll look at the gardens for ourselves. Okay, well, it is a beautiful day here in Bellport, and I'm a little late letting the chickens out, so they're not so happy. Come this way. So I built the chicken coop while we were renovating the house, and I figured while the carpenters were here, why not have them just build a chicken coop? And there was an old, I don't know, tree house or something that was falling down on this location. So we basically just replaced the treehouse with this chicken coop. And everyone said it was an outrageous chicken castle, but I think it's the perfect size for 10 little chickens. All right, girls, come on out. I know, come on. Come on out. Come on out. Come on out. So none of them have names, and this is the combination of two flocks. And half of them started out commuting as weekend chickens from Brooklyn, and we would come back and forth. And then the other half I got while we were out here. So there's 10 total, and now they live in harmony together. My fantasy of getting the chickens was that I would have all different colored eggs, which is exactly what has happened. And they lay so many eggs that I give them away to everyone that will take them. And they lay all different colors and all different sizes, come to find out. But we have green, chocolate brown, little pink eggs. It's really charming, and it's really fun and charming. And this time of year, they lay so many, you like don't even know what to do. It's like outrageous. Like, look at these girls. I mean, they are like desperate. Look at all these eggs. I mean, they are so funny. It's never not outrageous to come out here and like get eggs out of the coop. So now that we've let the chickens out to roam, let's go check out the garden and see what's in bloom. The property did not look like this when I came to first look at it. It was totally ramshackly and crazy. Like any stone that you see was not here before. This tree I put in, these hedges were basically sticks. Nothing looked like this. And anything that looks like it's overgrown right now is by design. This is technically called a parterre, which would be a kitchen garden, a cutting garden. People use it traditionally for a few different reasons. I basically shove anything into it which will grow and come back year after year, which has taken a few seasons to figure out what those species are. And then periodically I'll pop in a few different things like herbs or anything that I think is pretty at the nursery. But I figured out what kind of pops up every year and what will keep going. We also have a terrible deer issue in this whole area, I think it's actually considered an invasion or an epidemic. I forget exactly what the term is, but they eat pretty much everything. So anything that you see here are things that deer, I guess, do not eat. In any case, the astilbe, the purple and the white just started blooming, which looks so nice. It's a cool time of the summer because everything starts to get really like blousy and kind of like relaxed. The springtime, everything's like very crisp and bright and, everything's like perfectly in bloom. And now everything kind of gets like a little weedy and, I think it's a little more casual and cool. When I bought the house, there used to be this big crumbling concrete urn in the center, which after a couple seasons actually did crumble and turn to sand, basically. So I installed this. It came from, I think, South Carolina. It's a sugar bowl, and it's a sort of like distilled sugar in it. And now we made it into a fire pit. So in the summer, sometimes we'll have a cocktail party or something, and we'll light a big fire in it. And it's so dramatic and looks so great. I think it looks so cool. And let's see. There's lots of peonies in here. They're done blooming. The grasses sort of hop up and they look great. This is Joe Pye weed. It's a native. It's really going wild this year. Cool. Bleeding hearts, they're done. Some sedums, very cute. Yeah, everything's really like becoming very frothy. All the magnolias are blooming really nicely this year too. Southern magnolias. And a lot of what was really special about this yard too was all of the layers of hedges. This whole parterre garden is bordered by a boxwood hedge, and then behind it is a privet hedge. And then at each of the four corners are Alberta spruce, which are really fantastic looking. There's a level of formality to the garden that kind of creates structure, and then within that, this kind of very casual nature, which is interesting. And then just beyond the parterre, just sort of a hidden gem, is the pool back here. So there's a little bit of structure and formality around the pool with these four sort of very specific plantings on each side, but they're allowed to kind of get blousy and frothy to kind of add to that casual nature. So I think it's like quite charming. Oh, this is just the little lounge area. And this is a Hollywood prop, which now I'm stuck with after buying for a Halloween party. It floats in the pool. So now it lives here by the pool. And it really scares the landscapers. Another little special thing on the property is this beautiful treehouse. The chickens love it. Some of them go up in it. They like to take little dust baths underneath it. But it's such a magical little thing. Anytime kids visit, they like to go up there and just hang out. It's like only pretty much accessible by children. The hatch is like this big. But it's amazing. It was built by a local craftsman, years ago, and it's really stood the test of time. Let's head upstairs and check out the bedroom. Okay, so welcome to my bedroom. Like I said, since this was a boarding house, all of the bedrooms were very small and awkward. This is the biggest bedroom, albeit the most awkward of all of the bedrooms. So the bed actually had to float in the middle of the room. There's no orientation where a bed can actually be up against a wall. But that's fine. I made it work and picked a very nice sandy green for the walls of this room. And because it gets lots of morning light, it actually is a really beautiful neutral color, and looks great throughout the day. Again, lots of furniture, feels period appropriate. So I love an armoire, especially these faux bamboo pieces. This is French, from, I don't know, 20s or 30s. It breaks down into a million pieces, which is how I got it up here, the only way. But coming from the fashion world, I obviously need lots of storage for clothes, and it was a necessity in a house like this with no closets. And of course, with bedding, I love to play with color. And rather than buying all matching sheet sets, I like to buy all different like tonal colors of sheets. So like, I don't know, don't buy all one color of green, buy like all mixy matchy colors of green, and then like one off color. So this is my like current arrangement, is like blues and greens and one pink pillow. That's my current summer colorway. So again, back to my collecting of weird portraits. I have two. There's one here and one back here, both by a Portuguese artist from the 30s called Ismael Blah. And this one I love especially. It's called The Witches. And it's this lady, and then all like spirit versions of herself like whispering in her ear, and she's clutching a rosary. It's so creepy and funny, that I bought at auction ages ago. And then there's another that's like a creepy old man with a pipe. I don't know, they just really suit the spirit of the house, I think. They look great. Who doesn't want creepy old portraits of people staring at you while you're in bed? So these windows don't overlook the flower gardens, but they do have a very beautiful view of all of the specimen trees to the east, which is awesome. When you wake up in the morning, you just see like all of these very beautiful trees, which is so magical, making up for all those years of looking out at brick walls in Manhattan. So this was the original sleeping porch, which has since been converted into an interior space and now a little desk area, which is so nice. I like to take zooms here, which is like lots of natural light. And you sort of feel like you're in like, I don't know, like Captain Sandy or something on Below Deck, like you're in the bridge, you know, sort of on like a cruise ship or something. You can see like everything. But it's so nice. I have my desk here, and, you know, it's like what a different view from, you know, all of those days working in the city. And a highlight of this space is these clerestory windows, which are all original to the house in all of these kooky colors. Again, so beautiful. And you can see where I pulled some of the colors for some of the rooms from some of the original colors of stained glass. Home to me means a place where you're surrounded by all the things that you love and that bring you joy. So here's to being at home. Thanks, Homeworthy, for coming to visit me at my home. Now you gotta go. Get out of here.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.